You know, I can't read that. I've got it now.
When you get that slide, I'm zooming in, so.
That's it. Yeah.
No, that wasn't the intent.
Okay, we're live.
Thank you.
It's 10 o'clock on Thursday, April 25th. I'd like to call to order the Mid-Continent Public Library Building Committee. Would you take the roll, please?
Sure. Trustee Johnson,
Here.
trustee Gray, here, trustee Virgo,
Here.
trustee Lazio,
Here.
trustee Wyckoff, trustee Thies.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Yeah, we have a quorum. The next order of business is the approval of the agenda. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
So
I move to approve the agenda. It's Michael.
Thank you. Seconded. Thank you. All right, it has been moved and seconded that the agenda be approved. All those in favor say aye.
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 No. No. The ayes have it. The agenda has been approved. Next order of business is the minutes from our last meeting, which was Thursday, February 22nd. Is there any discussion of the minutes? Do we have a motion to approve the minutes? So I think we'll do a roll call. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
I move to approve the minutes. This is Joycelyn.
This is Michael. I second.
It's been moved and seconded that the minutes be approved. Call the roll, please.
trustee Lazio,
Yes.
trustee Virgo,
Yes.
trustee Johnson,
Aye.
trustee Gray, trustee Thies.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries.
And the motion carries. The minutes have been approved. Next order of business is the building maintenance plan discussion, and we approved study for this several months ago, and now we're having the plan being presented to us, and I'm not sure if it's going to lead the plan itself.
So we'll turn it over to Susan. She'll just tell a little bit about the work we've done up until this point, and then we'll hear from Todd and Aaron Gordon with some closing remarks from Jeremy just about the financial aspect of it. So Susan?
Yeah, now that we are closing in on opening up our final two buildings, we're looking at how to maintain all of the work that we have done over the last 6 or 7 years, which, as you all know, we've been asked by the board to develop a maintenance plan. We have contracted with Navigate Building Solutions and Todd Sweeney and his crew to review of our buildings. He went through about 2/3 of them. Obviously, the ones that have just opened, North Oak, Green Valley, the two that aren't yet open are not in this plan yet, but they are on our mind. So just because you don't see them listed doesn't mean we are not talking about them. I'm going to turn this over to Todd to talk about what they did and what they found. And then Aaron will talk briefly about what he has done with the plan and the numbers. The numbers are different, which is why we want to have Todd do his presentation, and then Aaron will talk about it. And Aaron will then turn it over to Jeremy to talk about how we are actually hoping to pay for this plan over time. Todd?
Thank you very much. My name is Todd Sweeney, Navigate Building Solutions Board of Founders. We have Scott here, both project managers. There's instrumental in doing the report. So, okay, we got it. So what we're here to talk about in about 10 minutes, 15 minutes max on our part is to give you a quick executive overview of what's included in these 2 volumes of documents. Now, they were a PDF, what it looks like in raw form, if everybody wants to carry that out. Each arm, Bob, you can work.
I can do that. I'll drive and read.
Hey, we got one younger person here that can actually do that, so we gotta be careful. I'm gonna stand over here if I may, or do I need to stand? No worries. Wonderful. So quickly, we wanted to review this and objective. I swear, Aaron, I saw that and I was like, oh my God, too late. I need to fix it, but I can't because it's already to you guys. But we want to review the report objective and scope of work. As Susan said, We were asked to do a 10-year plan, looking at the maintenance needs of 25 libraries, predominantly the ones that are the existing ones that were not rebuilt in the last 5 years. They're listed over here as described to you last time we met. Our scope of work was to gather and review existing information and staff intel. I can't tell you how helpful Aaron and his team have been to generate, just information on past reports, maintenance documents, drawings, really just drawings on every single facility were actually available, which is pretty remarkable. That's not usually the case. So wonderful help. We also did visual inspections and documented observed deficiencies. We developed the scope of work and budget for the repairs. We prioritized the work in collaboration with staff, with the thought of that being preliminary and that would continue to evolve. I think you'll see some of that discussion today as it's already begun to evolve as everybody's mind's been put towards it. What was the last one on the last slide? I'm sorry. And the last thing, was the prioritize with the other implementation strategy. Thank you. We did this fast. So it was 5 months we had to go from zero to those documents. So we put a 5-person team together, 2 of which aren't from Navigate. We did that intentionally for staffing reasons, right? Normally we could do roof inspections ourselves. We had to move fast. And the person taking the ladder, getting up on those roofs can be separate from the guy that's walking inside the building, can be separate from the guy that's swinging by and doing the pavement inspections. So we had 3 folks from our team, Don, Scott, and then all of us see our internal estimating team. And then we had a person from one of the manufacturers. There's multiple out there. There was no connection or requirement that you use them for future projects, but the manufacturer does look at it with options in mind and can do the coring and inspections. They supported us on the roof inspections, and True Engineering, somebody you do know, helped us with some of the analysis of the MEP systems. We reviewed maintenance reports, log schedules, and other maintenance data. That's really important because if we don't look at what you've already done, then we're doing it in a vacuum. We actually also encouraged, and Aaron was very helpful in, if we're going to do this maintenance plan, we don't want you to have a librarian at some facility come back and said, nobody asked. I live in the facility and nobody bothered to ask. That didn't happen on this job. We did ask. You're going to see in our report line items for miscellaneous. A lot of those miscellaneous items are little things that legitimately are maintenance issues that should be picked up that aren't in the core realm of HVAC, or it could have something to do with one of your ranges or something else that's going on that we needed to get fixed. So we did do that step. We performed visual inspections of the site conditions, exterior envelopes, and interior finishes. Documented findings, that's an important part of this. The fact that takes the majority of the time. We actually document using a inspection form that's multiple pages. You can see that on every single building, and it's consistent with every single building. So there's repetition. It's important when you're doing these projects. If you don't look at the same things in every facility, then people question, well, why not? So we did, and we're very consistent. Before we generated this report, we did the first 5. We met with your team. Are we hitting the right things? Are we checking all the boxes? Then, because the drawings existed, we were able to then transfer that information from a report to a visual context. Where in the building are we seeing it? To suggest that you got leaking sills, or suggest you got a roof issue. Where in the building does it exist? So we take your plans and we use Bluebeam to create another document that further illustrates the intent of the work. Yeah, please.
One thing I want to add to that is that the visual component with the drawing is a key component. Not only does it show you guys where all these issues are we identify in the building, but it also lets us be able to provide you with an accurate cost that we can stand behind, knowing that our estimator has the quantities needed for the work that's being called out when he's not the one walking the building.
Yeah, that's a good point. That's also important. With the drawings being available, needing to measure windows versus scaling them off a drawing, it saved you a lot of time, saved us a lot of time, saved you some costs, which we talked about before. So that was good. Thank you, Scott. Estimating quantity takeoffs, I want to make sure everybody in the room knows that we are not just spitballing numbers. We literally, as Scott just mentioned, we're doing quantity takeoffs. In most cases, we're measuring the number of doors, windows, it needs floor area, square foot floor area, we're replacing flooring, roofing. Then we use unit costs. They are Kansas City costs, right? We have an office in Kansas City, although people are like, does this say those costs? Is it accurate? Yes, it's very accurate. We're estimating work in Wichita, so we're a few hours that way as well. So we can work all over the Midwest. These are Kansas City numbers and they are prevailing wage. We're a public agency. So we need the rates to be right. Markups, we include markup for contingency, escalation, design, and project management fees. It does you no good to get a construction number that isn't fully loaded, right? It doesn't have all the costs. So we do that. And then this is unique to us. We sat down and we worked with Aaron and we talk about the idea that if you're going to have a unit cost, Scott says it's gonna cost me so much linear foot per pipe to redo plumbing pipe, for example. That cost works really well for a new build. Right? The material cost makes sense, the labor makes sense, it's scheduled, it's sequenced, you're doing it in open ceilings and it works. When you're going in and taking down ceilings, asking people to move, putting up temporary protections, right? It's a little bitty job versus a large plumbing job, right? All those things impact cost. So we do coefficients associated with that. A lot of it has to do with the size of the work. GC stands for general contractor, over $1 million, less than $1 million, small work package, which would be something where you're just asking somebody to do a retaining wall, for example, which is not driven by a management firm like a general contractor, or you just have lighting standalone, whatever the case may be. And in some cases, when we look at procurement coefficients, there was an overall strategy that was being floated. We'll talk about it in a second, that suggests if I'm going to touch a library, we should do it all at once. If it makes sense, right? Doesn't make sense if you're projecting a roof out 10 years and you got work that needs to be done right now. Of course you wouldn't combine it because you still got 10 years of roof left, right? You don't want to just replace it now for convenience, but you still had 10 years of roof life left. That's not what we're suggesting here. But we did look at the sequencing of all the work packages and when they might go together and suggest that, hey, if there's a 2-year window here where things are probably going to end up needing to be done, let's try to package them together so that if there is a shutdown, it happens quickly, we're in and out, you're not hitting that library over and over and over again. So there's all those discussions going on in implementation. Thank you.
What, Todd,
Yes.
can we back up?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I circled that. Could you explain to us what procurement coefficient means in reality to us, like
Yeah.
times 1, times 1.25, the one, okay.
We take your numbers times, if we could bid the work out, it can be managed by general contractors over $1 million, we'll get good bids on that. We'll be attractive in the market. The commercial contractors, you being a public agency, they'll go through the hassle to secure that work. With or without long lead item. One thing that can dramatically impact your cost is the idea of procurement of long lead. So if you got $1 million job, but they're waiting 2 months for electrical gear to show up or an HVAC piece to come, this would change. So with long lead procurement, you may need that on some of it. We could pre-order through cooperative purchase agreement, still legally as a public agency if it's acceptable to your finance where you hired us that way. So yes, most public agencies will allow us to do that. So it shows up on time. So with or without long lead, whether it's required or not, if it's over $1 million and we can bid it to general contractors, the number's still good. Our unit cost, what I just said about that pipe is it's gonna be big enough that they can schedule it and we can get in and out, do it right. Okay. If this gets less than $1 million, right, and we're running between $500,000 and $1 million, and we still think a general contractor makes sense. In some of those cases, you know what, you just go directly to a mechanical contractor because that's all that is. But if a general contractor is involved, they're gonna start adding premiums. It could be as much as 25% on this job. You get somebody interested in bidding this. If you were a private entity, different story. Private entity, you call your buddy up and say, hey man, can you come do this? Whether it's $500,000 or $1 million, doesn't matter. But you have to go through public procurement law. And that's such a hassle that the smaller jobs don't get the attention that you would expect, right? If it's a small work package, in other words, the GC is not involved, then we still have to put a premium on it because it's a mechanical driving the boat, it's electrical driving the boat, it's a roofing contract or whatever the case may be. And then there's some cases where we had pricing in there where there was a large roof piece and some split package stuff. So we used, right, 1 and 5 depending on what was going on. We had some that were blended. That's why some of those numbers weren't exact. They were 1.19 or 1.21. It's because we used the formula to blend it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Bob, for asking. One of these exists on each one of your buildings. Okay, it's the detail. You can't see it, but I tell you what, Bob, I'm gonna fix that problem for you. I'm gonna give
I
you.
have my glasses.
Each one of the tabs have it. There's probably not any bigger, but anyway, I was being smart.
It's okay. Well, you're from St. Louis.
Right. It's okay. Yes, I should have jeans on. You dress appropriately. The steel asphalt, right? Number of square feet in a unit block. So again, it's just a reflection of the notion that it wasn't just some number, there's actually cost. We went on Google Earth, Scott and his team measured out how many square yards do we have. We compared it to the photos we had of is this just natural mill overlay, or is there spider cracking? And we're gonna have to, there's 3 locations, and Aaron was in the middle of this conversation, man, we're gonna have to do some geotech and geogrid, we're gonna have to do some more on this. Engineered solution is your paving, if you walk on it, it's web, that means your subsurface conditions are a problem. So we actually took the time and did that. I won't show them. This is patch asphalt, replace concrete, replace landscaping, retaining wall to stabilize hillsides. So there's definition in here. And then equally important is miscellaneous, fire alarm upgrade, fire sprinkler upgrade, replace. Those are those little items that you wonder, well, where did the miscellaneous number come from? It does exist in each tab for each building. You can get into this detail and see very clearly what makes the numbers, okay? A lot of what you may have seen have been more of an executive summary spreadsheets, simply because there's just too much content that, to do that. All right, it broke down this way. As I mentioned before, miscellaneous, well, what's 8.86 mean? It's in your book, and we certainly can address that on any building. We can talk through that if you got any questions. But going back to the top, you got approximately 8.6% is site work. A lot of this has to do with water control and paving in particular. Envelope, foundation, facade, windows, doors, ceilings, systems. I want to make sure that it's very clear on these HVAC systems. The replacement is based upon useful life projections. Okay, you do have to draw a line somewhere in there. I'll be very frank with you. Your buildings are well maintained. Your HVAC systems are in pretty good shape. So at that point, you're like, okay, so what do we base it on? And that's when you go to life projections, right? 30-year life projection HVAC. At that point, you start to lose efficiency no matter how well you're maintaining it. The same thing with roofs. Your roofs look pretty good shape, right? But we put a number on here. I'm gonna spend a little bit more time on this in a second, and then finish this and the miscellaneous. What I do want to mention is even in our number, the 49 million, that's good. If you go to the next slide, Susan, thank you. There's a lot of variation. So that the suggestion that these guys are taking the content and are massaging it makes all the sense in the world. It should happen. And why it can happen is because Aaron and his team were intimately involved. They know how we built our numbers, whether or not they 100% agree with the assumption or would prefer that I went all brand new roofs or not all brand new roofs. The content's there to allow you as a board to make decisions. So roofs, for example, can swing. We went with a medium solution on that, which is a retrofit. Give 2 bullets on that.
Yeah, so just to give you a quick summary on a retrofit, so you can do a restoration, a retrofit or a full new roof. What the retrofit is, you're essentially building a new roof system, like if you were going with a new roof, but you're not tearing off that old roof system. So you're saving on the labor associated with not demoing that roof the first time. Yeah, there'll be some cost demo the second time, but you already got guys there, so it's cost. In the long term, you're going to see cost savings. And another benefit of that is you could still get the 30-year warranty that you would expect to see on a brand new roof system of paying 25% less of the cost for the same new roof system.
And then you got different roofs. You got metal roofs, you got shingle roofs, you got TPO roofs, you got bitumen roofs. I mean, you got a lot of different options there. So we put this in. I personally believe if you're budgeting, and this was supported by your administration, that you shouldn't just normally, you could budget one way, it's the absolute worst case of everything. Well, then I would have had this number in here. It's a complete tear off of every single roof, put it back in. Right? Why even go up on the roof? I could just take square foots and just price it that way. There's no point. Your roofs are in good shape. You guys have been doing some work. So we felt that this, and our manufacturer felt this was a better solution. So the majority, not all of them, are in this category. You can look through the book and every one has the report and shows you which one we take. But you could actually go cheaper too. You could. You could put a spray on that just sprays on and lasts 10 years, you're done. Right? Of course, I'm not, we don't suggest that.
Right, and then with the spray apply, there's low, medium, high grade.
Even that
there.
good.
So there's kind of a misconception with a fluid applied restoration system that you're just getting some Flex Seal that you ordered off of the online or the infomercial.
You gotta go up and roll it. Yeah.
But that's not, those systems are typically 5 to 30 mils, whereas these restoration systems are 90 to 120 mils. So you're talking 3 to 4 times the thickness of a system that can be warranted to fit for 15 to 20 years and is considered a real waterproofing system rather than just a water resistant membrane.
Having said that, Aaron, I apologize if you moved some of the numbers and gone to that. There's nothing wrong with assuming brand new roof either. I didn't mean to say it that way. And I felt bad. I was like, oh, I don't know where the numbers have gone, but I'm sure they've moved them. MEP system, same thing. HQ renovation, obviously you guys are considering what's the real value here. You got a renovation, that 11 million might come out, may not. So there's going to be change. And that should be welcomed by the board because it means that the content generated is informative and allows you to maneuver. And that's awesome. Also, I want to make sure everybody knows, because some people get hung up on this, we did talk to Garland, use them as a resource. Derby Gun's big in Kansas City, and they're a great manufacturer. Firestone's a great man. They changed names now, but Firestone's a great manufacturer. Even that use of manufacturer can move this number, right? It can come down through a bidding process. I got to move faster. Work prioritization. We did go through a process of prioritizing the work, immediate cost. Needs, generally this deals with the situation where you have water intrusion or something that's going to cause, if you don't fix it, it could cause a problem. These could be interpreted a lot of different ways by a lot of different clients. We took a stab at it, and I think you'll see that needle move quite a bit as you guys continue to inform and grow in your own plan. Patron satisfaction, energy performance, and then general maintenance. We color code that. We then put together the next page, which is associated all those costs with the value that ties back. You'll see a large spreadsheet. Again, you may see variations of that because every institution uses those prioritizations slightly different. The next page is implementation planning. Key considerations for that, anything that could cause damage that not handled, small projects already being discussed, things that could be done with your own staff versus contracting out, that could change the number and the needle. Available funding, certainly least intrusive project approach, try to occur only, that's what we talked about previously. And if you are going to shut down a facility, are there neighboring facilities? You guys got a wealth of facilities, which is really remarkable. And then neighboring resources. So we do try to prioritize the timing and when things are going to happen and try to lay that into a 10-year plan, which is shown on the next page. I can tell you, I know this is changing and it should. For example, funding, we don't know. So we do generate this in a vacuum that serves as a preliminary. A proposed implementation plan. We still are looking at that 49 million and giving a suggestion. If allowed to continue to work with you, those things will evolve and your team will evolve them and you'll see variations to that maybe even today. On the last slide, we'll do questions and answers later from what I understand, but there's more to come before we get to that, unless you want me to take questions now later on any of the technical things.
This is a great transition into Aaron's remarks.
Awesome.
Generally speaking, we agree with the way all this work has been categorized. However, the way our definition of immediate is a little bit different, understandably, than what's in this report. And so Aaron's gonna talk a little bit about the work he did with Navigate and also his takeaways.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, going through the report and reading and trying to make sense of immediate energy performance, general maintenance needs, and everything that's a definition for you, just looking at it from a cost standpoint, and then what typically we would do versus what we would outsource. I took that plan and kind of looked at it and said, okay, there's issues that are immediate needs where we need to put a plan in action and plan on saving towards the future because looking at this is something we need to look at. So really, we took a lot of the general maintenance needs that we could fund through operations, and we took those and put those off the table. And what we wound up with was those large capital replacement costs that go into this next plan. Is kind of where we're at with this. And so this is just a point of reference. Is kind of how we looked at Todd's work, not to discredit anything he had, but we looked at it, we said, well, how can we take this as a point of reference going forward to plan, right? Because really what we're trying to do is do future planning so that, the library stays safe and dry for the next decade. That's what we're looking at. And so going forward with this, really, that's what we focused on. So like when I took his plan, I took the HVAC needs, the parking lots, and the roofs. Now he identified the HVAC needs as energy efficiency, where we'd be looking at energy efficiency, but on the plan where I took what he had worked on with his plan, it became HVAC, roofs, and parking lots. So those big items was where I put my focus. And then pass that information really along, and I'm gonna let Jeremy kind of speak to how we could save to look to take this plan and look at.
Sure. So before we get into the 10-year plan that we have proposed, I just want to make sure that we're all, in agreement with some definitions. I think it's important to know what's going to be funded in this plan and what's going to be funded in other places. So anything that's under $100,000, we consider to just be routine maintenance, and it'll be a part of the operating budget. So we're not discussing that today. There were some items in the Navigate plan that we consider to be just routine maintenance. So that's one of the reasons why our number is lower than theirs. The majority of what we're going to talk about today, we're calling capital replacement. Meaning we currently own it, we have to maintain it, and it's more than $100,000. So that's the plan that we're about to present to you. And then the third category, which isn't a part of this plan yet, but we need to be mindful of in the future, is what we would call a capital addition. We don't own anything today. It will cost more than $100,000, and it will be an asset to the library when it's built. So an example of that could be Farview. Currently Farview is owned by the school district. If we were to either buy that building or buy a building to relocate Farview, that would be a new thing. So we wouldn't call that maintenance because we don't own it yet. And it's over $100,000, so it would be a capital addition. Sorry, I didn't mean to do
I was just gonna reiterate that tonight, that those projects that Jeremy just mentioned align with our strategic investment priority that was presented to the board. So over the next year, we'll identify areas of need and then come back to the board with a recommendation on where to make those investments.
Susan, do you have the slides? Gonna be really hard to read on this slide. It's on board docs. So what we wanted to do was establish a pay-as-you-go plan. So we have no intention to borrow money. We believe that the library's mill levy at its approved level, not its reduced level, is sufficient to support this type of a structure over the next, it's actually 12 years, it's 10 years of expenditures, 12 years of revenue, basically. So in the current year budget, 23-24 that we're currently in, we had set aside $350,000 to sort of kick this plan off. So that's the first number that we have in our plan. We intend to have $1 million added to that in the 24-25 budget, which we'll be presenting to you all in a few weeks. And then the plan would be that in every other year, that's a reassessment year, we would add $500,000 to that allocation. So the library essentially is committing to growing the funding pool for capital replacement maintenance needs over time. So it'll be $1 million in this year's budget. It'll be $1.5 million in the two budgets following. It'll be $2 million in the two budgets following that, et cetera. So that at the end of that span, we have essentially accumulated $30 million. Then it's really an inartful math picture. We're really just trying to slot these projects in from a priority basis and then a cash basis. So our expenditures will begin basically in 3 years, in 2026. So to say all that, we would essentially have 1.3 million in the budget for next year that should a catastrophe occur, we would have funding available. Should no catastrophe occur and no immediate need present itself, then that 1.3 would roll to the next year where we would add another $1 million, and now we'd have $2.3 million for the exact same thing. Should a catastrophe occur, we've got funding. Should it not occur, it rolls to the next year. We just continue to do that throughout the life of this plan. The other thing I'll say, much like what Susan mentioned, this is just a snippet of the buildings that we currently own. So as we move forward, I don't want anybody to have the impression that this document is in stone. It is not. It's on paper with a pencil. And every year we're going to look at it and determine need and determine availability of funding. Meaning, quite frankly, if we can't afford the $500,000, we've got to go back to the drawing board and rework the plan. But the intention of staff is that we not have to raise taxes and we don't have to borrow money to maintain the assets that we currently own.
This plan is based on based on the idea that there's consistent and expected revenues, based on our projections and the setting of a levy. So that could fund the savings plan. Variance in revenues or wide swings then would throw this plan out of whack. So Jeremy, could you just talk a little bit about best practices for organizations our size when we're setting up reserves to handle maintenance needs?
Sure. So I think one of the challenges the library has is because our tax year and our fiscal year are essentially diametrically opposed. We give the impression that we have a significant fund balance at the end of our fiscal year, which is true, we do. But that cash is needed to fund our operations until the next tax cycle begins. And so when you look at our fund balance and you remove the amount of cash that's there just to get us to the next tax cycle, it's a much smaller number, as you'll see when we present the budget. And so we need to make sure that in future thinking, we're talking about an actual reserve for, what was mentioned last night in the personnel committee, any kind of a catastrophe. We would have funds set aside for that. Should the current funding formula for the pay-as-you-go plan not be sufficient? We have 5 roofs that fail in 1 year, or we have 5 HVAC systems that all fail at the same time. That contingency would be there as well. So ideally, we would have, I would say 10% of our operating expenses set aside as an operating reserve. In addition to that, in the capital fund, we would have this pay-as-you-go plan laid out for the capital maintenance. And then as we get into it, we'll have a similar plan for headquarters and then another plan for what we would consider a capital addition if we're going to add any assets to the organization. So, I'm not sure if that answers
It does.
the question.
I think it's important. Before the meeting, we were talking about plans, strategic plans, and it's our opinion on the staff side that the budget this year really is a guiding strategy for the next 10 years when it comes to investment in areas of need and the maintenance of our building. So in many respects, it's more relevant than the traditional strategic plan because there's actual numbers attached to it. So anyway, thank you for that explanation. And now I guess we can just go to the Q&A. Great job. So.
Before we do, well, I'd like to ask a couple of questions. We're in the question and answer period for all board members, but we'll go back to that stuff. I just want to make, first of all, in terms of the headquarters building, I think the plan is to rebuild at this point on this physical site. Is that correct? I think it says it can be done. I just didn't know how that was to be accomplished.
So we had Todd only look at, maintenance needs for the building with the assumption that the building is, is as is. But the plan for the coming year, and an RFQ will come out in the coming weeks, is to really analyze the program of headquarters and make a recommendation to the board as to whether or not we should stay here, renovate, maybe relocate or rebuild. So that decision hasn't been made yet. So all you see here is replacement costs for things like HVAC, parking lots and roof and that sort of thing.
And how many employees are here at this facility?
167.
So, then the other, and it's only a matter because it kind of hit me last night because I used to build houses. So I looked at Farview and then I looked at the roof. And Farview's, is that a 1,500 square facility?
No, it's closer to 5,000.
It's closer to
Oh, is it
5,000.
Yeah, it
The
is.
Community Service League has about 1,500 of that 5,000, and then the library has
Yeah.
the remainder.
Well, I couldn't figure out the roofing cost because I was analyzing on a 1,500-foot building. And
Yeah.
wow, that was, what was it? $322,000, I thought. Okay. So that's how much building is it Farview? It's 5,000?
It's roughly 5,000 square feet
Yeah,
for the whole building, yes.
Okay, how about other questions from our board members?
Yeah, I had a couple of questions. They're probably pretty naive, but does energy performance basically mean heating and air conditioning?
Yes, sir.
And
Okay,
windows, anything that'll make you more efficient and have to use your utilities.
gotcha. Okay. And then, when you mentioned the possibility of a roof built upon an existing roof, does that trigger questions about the structural integrity of the walls and everything, or is that not that much of a weight?
It'll be evaluated as part of the process. Typically, it's a pretty lightweight system. I mean, most of your loading from your roof system is from the decking and the supports associated.
Gotcha.
Which would not change. So you're really just adding cover board, insulation, and another roof member, which is all lightweight materials.
Good question.
But you can't, so with the caveat to that is you can't build up, if you go the retrofit route one, you can't go back to your roof and retrofit it again, and put a third layer on it. Once you do that, then at that point, your next step is either a fluid applied restoration on top to extend that life, or a full tear off.
Gotcha. Okay.
It's interesting you bring up energy. I'll throw this only out there because it's not been evaluated in the timeframe we had. But anytime you improve an HVAC system, especially if it's 30 years old, the efficiency will be recognized in utility rates. There is a financial component here of energy savings that has not been added into this, and it may be peanuts, but still something to consider. We could document that and start monitoring that, or your team could. You should see some real savings in your energy consumption.
And then what a vision, just not only energy usage, but oftentimes your utility providers are providing incentives to businesses or homeowners to buy into systems to make their homes more efficient and get credit.
So then the 20+ million, whatever that was for the energy side, that, so to speak, could pay for itself by the reduction in public utility.
At least a portion of it, yes.
Okay, yeah. Okay, great, thank you. Yeah, just a general question for Jeremy. If we, hopefully, we'll be doing something like having a very substantial fencing around, like North Independence or outside reading area at Lake Como. Would that fit within like the first definitions, like the 100,000 or any other category?
Without bidding it, I'm not sure. But if it's under 100,000, we would just consider that a routine maintenance of that facility. If it's over 100,000, we would capitalize it and add it to our assets, and then it would be part of this plan. Or it would be, if it's a standalone structure, it would be a capital addition.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, great. Thank you all.
If I could follow up only on the second level. Some cities, I don't know about in residential, some cities like Lee Summit will allow you to put a second roof on. I don't know about commercial properties. Is that an issue with municipalities within our district in terms of putting a second level?
Not that
Another,
we'll confirm that, but not that.
well, I'm just, in Lee Summit, I know for residential, if
Yeah.
you're gonna get a permit to do that, you've got to take it all off and keep it one.
We've not experienced that on the commercial side.
Yeah, and I don't.
It's a good question to double check, and we certainly will.
Again, members of the committee,
Hi, this is Joycelyn. I had a question.
please ask.
Ed, hi. Well, basically, mainly a comment. I wanted to just say thank you to the group that has looked at this. It's been almost about 10 years before we've taken a comprehensive look at all of our buildings, because we've been involved in construction for so long. And I particularly like the emphasis on what needs to be done, how we're going to pay for it, and how we're going to plan to pay for it, and how we're going to handle emergencies or crises or immediate needs. I would just like to remind the board that this is a plan, and plans can change, and plans can change based on our community's needs. Communities are growing, they're getting smaller, whatever, and there may be needs to adapt and change, but I think this is a solid plan that can be able to handle any kind of needs that come up. That's all.
other questions or comments from committee members?
I have a question. This is Marcy Gray. So just, I'm still fairly new enough that I don't know a ton about the buildings themselves and where forth that is, but as you look at the HVAC systems and that, and are there are they all fairly old? Are we looking at, I mean, in terms of, how to phrase this, newer technology is out there, and I presume the plan sort of looks at that and says, this is the expected life. So the new replacement unit cuts significantly. Have we thought also about anything like, are there opportunities to do solar in there, that might generate?
There's been
Power
preliminary
back in-
conversations
I mean-
about that. We didn't know how to roll that technically into the maintenance document, but it's certainly something that your team is aware of and it stresses. So it would be something you'd want to consider, no differently than the rebates that you can get. I mean, there's not a municipality, we're not pulling down some grant funding on for replacement of units. Sometimes it's a little bit, especially in the rural areas where you're dealing with the cooperative versus the major, utility. But we would do the same thing. We would look at that. We would look at the energy savings, because then that could be given back to Jeremy to help make your projections more accurate. And we could look at opportunities for solar, and geothermal are the two. And we're great at that because we put the first net zero building together in Missouri. So we certainly have the ability to analyze that quickly and see if there's a payback.
You answered the question much better than I articulated. I appreciate you were right on track for trying to answer.
Any members? Okay, then, what are you asking for us, or probably not, just now presentation at this point?
This is just for information purposes, but what we've talked about today in terms of the pay-as-you-go plan, will be reflected in the budget we present to the full board on, May 14th, correct me if is that the date? Yeah, so that's our next special session where we share the whole budget, for the organization. And so this will be a part of that plan.
Me personally, I like the pay-as-you-go philosophy, especially if we're talking about a multi-year total project, so.
Agreed.
Any other comments from committee members on item number 5 of our budget, or our minute, of our agenda today? Okay, I think we go to item 6. We have any other business?
Just, we're nearing substantial completion at Riverside and East Independence. There's still some punch list items that need to be addressed. Aaron Gordon and I are working with Jay Dunn on closing that out. We've yet to sign substantial completion, but that's coming in the near future. And then just a quick reminder that June 7th is the opening of East Independence, and June 14th will be the grand opening of Riverside. We're excited to open the doors to the community and get those places up and running.
Any other business? Okay, then, if there isn't any other business, is there a motion to, well, first of all, we have the date for our next meeting.
Susan, do you have that?
Next, it'll be May 23rd. That's your next regular meeting. May 23rd.
Thursday, the 23rd.
Yes.
So before we adjourn, it looks like then unless a need for a special meeting arises, we will have our regularly scheduled meeting, May 23rd. And at 10 o'clock. And now is there a motion to adjourn?
So
I'll move to adjourn. This is Joycelyn.
Okay.
I'll say.
Yeah. So moved and seconded that we adjourn. We'll do this on the voice vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no.